Have you ever been trapped in that heart-pounding silence? The kind where the English words you need simply vanish, leaving you stranded in the middle of a thought. I know that feeling intimately, and today we are going to dismantle it, piece by piece. This is not just another language lesson, this is your training ground for unshakable fluency. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the place where your English fluency becomes reality. I'm Carol, and as always, I'm joined by the brilliant Bob. Bob, how are you doing today?
I'm absolutely fantastic, Carol, and a sincere hello to all of our dedicated listeners tuning in from across the globe. I have a feeling you're going to be very grateful you joined us today because we're tackling one of the most universal challenges, how to speak English without constant, awkward pausing.
That's our mission. A tremendous number of English learners find themselves battling hesitation when they speak. They hit pauses frequently, scrambling to find the right vocabulary, or they get completely stuck because their internal thought process is still happening in their native language. This inevitably makes their spoken English sound fragmented and less natural.
You've described it perfectly. To speak smoothly and with a natural rhythm is a huge ambition for so many learners. But I want to be very clear to everyone listening. Do not worry. In this episode, we are handing you practical, real-world tips and targeted exercises that will empower you to drastically reduce those pauses and speak with much greater fluency.
So, if you've ever felt that surge of frustration because your words aren't coming out as fast as you'd like, or if you keep stopping and starting while you're trying to express yourself, you are in the right place. By the time we finish, you will possess powerful strategies to think more quickly, speak more smoothly, and sound infinitely more confident when you use English.
It all sounds incredibly promising. So let's not waste another second. Let's get this journey started.
Okay, Bob. Before we delve into the solutions and how we can fix this common problem, it's vital that we first lay the groundwork. Why do you think people pause so much when they are speaking English? What are the root causes in your opinion?
That is a perfect starting point, Carol. There are several fundamental reasons why English learners pause excessively during conversation. The first major cause is a simple lack of confidence. When people are uncertain about their English skills, they hesitate deeply because they fear making embarrassing mistakes.
Yes, and that fear literally acts as a brake on their speech. Instead of just allowing the language to flow naturally, they are constantly double-checking themselves. It's like their brain is shouting, "Hold on, is this grammatically correct? Am I using the right preposition?" And by the time they've reached a verdict, the person they're talking to has already moved on in the conversation.
Precisely. Another significant reason is vocabulary gaps. There are moments when learners simply don't know the exact word they need, so they come to a full stop and try to hunt for it in their mind. This searching action makes their speech sound inherently unnatural and disjointed.
It's a massive hurdle. When your vocabulary bank is limited, your brain has to work overtime to find synonyms or alternative ways to express the idea. And that extra cognitive load creates more and more pauses. This is exactly why actively expanding your vocabulary is so crucial. And we will be sharing some superb strategies on how to do that effectively very soon.
And let's not overlook the destructive role of overthinking. A huge number of learners get caught in the trap of trying to translate entire sentences word for word from their mother tongue into English as they speak. But English has different sentence structures, idioms, and patterns, so this internal translation process drastically slows them down and manufactures those long, uncomfortable silences.
Absolutely. Overthinking is a primary killer of fluency. Instead of speaking intuitively, learners get stuck in their heads, striving for every sentence to be perfect. But here's the vital truth. Fluency is not about perfection. It's entirely about maintaining flow and connection.
That is such a critical point. And finally, a portion of those pauses are born purely from nervousness and the pressure to perform,
When people feel anxious, particularly in dialogues with native speakers, they can mentally freeze and forget even simple words they know perfectly well.
I see this constantly. When that pressure mounts, the brain's processing speed seems to slow down. That's precisely why building confidence is not a soft skill. It's an essential part of your language training, and we will be providing some key exercises for that today.
So to consolidate, the four biggest reasons for pausing while speaking English are 1. A lack of confidence, 2. Gaps in vocabulary, 3. The habit of overthinking and translating, and 4. Nervousness triggered by pressure.
Exactly. Now that we have diagnosed the problem with precision, it is time to build the solution. Let's move into the most dynamic part of our discussion, the techniques to minimize pauses and speak fluently. Are you ready, Bob?
I was born ready, Carol. So let's jump straight into the solutions. Now that we understand the why, let's master the how. What is the very first technique people can use to reduce those frustrating pauses?
One of the most transformative techniques is to train your brain to think directly in English, bypassing the translation step altogether. So many learners compose a full sentence in their native language first, and then attempt to translate it word for word into English. This dual process is what creates the major delays.
That is a complete game changer. If you are always translating from your first language, your mind is forced to do twice the work. First, it has to construct the idea in your native tongue, and then it must perform the complex task of converting it into English. That process consumes precious time and is the direct cause of those elongated pauses.
Exactly. A superb way to practice the skill of thinking in English is to silently narrate your daily life using simple English sentences. For instance, if you are sitting in a cafe, you can think, "The coffee smells rich and warm. A man is reading a newspaper by the window. The sound of the steam machine is loud." This consistent practice trains your mind to process your immediate reality and your thoughts directly in English, making it your brain's default setting for communication.
I truly love that exercise. It's simple, free, and you can do it anywhere without anyone even knowing. Now, here's another useful technique, the strategic use of filler words. I know some English purists frown upon them, but the reality is that native speakers use them constantly to maintain the rhythm of a conversation and to buy a moment of thinking time.
That's so true. Filler words and phrases like, well, actually, so, and I mean, provide your brain with the crucial second to formulate the next part of your thought without creating a dead, awkward silence in the conversation. Instead of stopping completely and straining for a word, you can smoothly say, well, I believe that's a valid point. Or, I once saw a film very similar to that.
That is an excellent point, Carol. It makes you sound more natural and paradoxically more fluent because the flow of sound continues. Now, here is another profoundly powerful technique, shadowing. Are you familiar with this method, Carol?
Of course. Shadowing is the practice of listening to a native English speaker and repeating what they say almost simultaneously, like a vocal echo. It forces you to speak quickly, match the rhythm, and articulate without pausing to overanalyze the grammar or word choice.
Yes, you can do this with any English audio content, podcasts like this one, YouTube videos, or audiobooks. Simply play a short sentence, pause the audio, and immediately repeat it out loud, aiming to copy the speaker's intonation and speed as closely as possible. Over time, this trains your brain and your mouth to produce English sounds and sequences without conscious hesitation, building muscular and cognitive memory.
It's a remarkably effective exercise, and this leads me to one more vital tip for this section. Relinquish the pursuit of perfection. So many learners pause because they are terrified of making a grammatical error or mispronouncing a word. But in authentic communication, small mistakes are perfectly normal and are almost always forgiven.
Absolutely. The primary goal is always to communicate your idea, not to deliver a grammatically immaculate speech. If you cannot instantly recall a specific word, do not shut down. Instead, Try to describe the concept or use simpler words. For example, if the word refrigerator escapes you, you could confidently say, the cold box where I keep my food fresh. That is a successful communication, and that is what true fluency is about.
So to recap these first powerful techniques, number 1, cultivate the habit of thinking directly in English. Number 2, use filler words strategically to maintain conversational flow. Number 3, practice shadowing with native speaker audio. And number 4, abandon the goal of perfection and focus on getting your message across.
These are fantastic foundational strategies, but we're just getting warmed up. Coming up next, we're going to dive even deeper into how to train your brain for faster speech and quicker responses. You will not want to miss this.
So we've equipped ourselves with some immediate techniques to keep the conversation flowing. But what about the underlying engine, our brain? How do we train it to process and produce English at a much faster rate?
That's the core of the issue, Carol. Techniques are the tools, but we need to upgrade the machinery itself. The first step in this cognitive training is to expand your vocabulary in a much smarter, more efficient way. This means learning phrases and full sentence patterns, not just individual isolated words.
That is so critical. If your mental library only contains single words, your brain has to work tirelessly to assemble them into a coherent sentence in real time, which is a slow and painstaking process. But if you learn ready-made phrases, your speech becomes automatic. For example, instead of just memorizing the word suggestion, learn the entire phrase, I'd like to make a suggestion, or what if we consider another option? This way, when the situation arises, the entire chunk of language is ready to use, eliminating the pause for construction.
Exactly. It's like using pre-made building blocks instead of crafting each brick from scratch while you're trying to build a house. And this leads us directly into the second brain training method, active listening. This isn't just about passively hearing English in the background. It's about engaging with the content deeply and analytically.
Active listening means immersing yourself in podcasts, audiobooks, and conversations, but with a specific intent. You are not just a recipient, you are an analyst. As you listen, try to predict what the speaker is going to say next. Guess the next word or the conclusion of their sentence. This forces your brain to operate on the same wavelength as the speaker, anticipating the logical flow of the language.
I love that exercise because it turns listening into an interactive sport for your brain. And speaking of prediction, here's a related and incredibly fun practice: conversation anticipation. When you are watching a dialogue in a TV show or listening to a podcast, press pause just before a speaker finishes their sentence. Then try to complete their thought aloud using your own words. This trains your brain to think ahead rapidly and formulate responses under time pressure, which is exactly what happens in a real-life conversation.
That is a brilliant way to simulate real-world speaking pressure in a safe environment. And the fourth method for training your brain is through deliberate imitation. Find a native speaker whose style you admire, perhaps a news presenter, a documentary narrator, or a charismatic podcaster, and try to copy them precisely.
This goes beyond shadowing. Imitation is about capturing not just their words, but their music, their rhythm, their intonation, their pace, and even their pauses for emphasis. The more you expose your brain to these natural patterns and actively try to reproduce them, the more your own brain will internalize these structures, making your own speech quicker and more natural.
So, to consolidate these brain training strategies, 1. Learn vocabulary in phrases and chunks. 2. Practice active listening and prediction. 3. Engage in conversation anticipation exercises. And 4. Deliberately imitate the speaking patterns of native speakers you admire.
These methods are designed to rewire your brain for speed and efficiency. But knowledge without action is like a car without fuel. So coming up next, we are going to get very practical with specific exercises you can start doing today to cement this fluency. Stay with us.
One of my absolute favorites is the 1-minute speaking challenge. This is a beautifully simple yet incredibly powerful exercise. You pick any topic. It can be as simple as my favorite season or what I did yesterday. And your goal is to speak about it for 1 full minute without any stopping. No pauses, no rewinding. Even if you make a mistake, you push through.
That is fantastic because it simulates the uninterrupted flow of a real conversation. You don't have the luxury to stop and correct yourself when you're chatting with someone. If 1 minute feels too daunting, absolutely start with 30 seconds. The key is to build that muscle memory for continuous speech, and gradually you increase the time as your fluency grows.
Exactly. It's about building endurance. Another highly effective exercise is story retelling. This one is brilliant for activating your vocabulary and practicing narrative flow. You listen to a short story, a news report, or even a scene from a movie. Then you try to retell that entire story in your own words aloud.
I love that exercise. It forces you to use your existing vocabulary to reconstruct ideas, which is a much more active and useful skill than just passively recognizing words. You have to remember the sequence, the characters, the conflict, all in English. It's a full brain workout for language production.
It truly is. Now, for those who want to work on their speed and spontaneity, there's speed conversation practice. You set a timer for 2 or 3 minutes and have a rapid fire conversation with the partner. The rule is that you must respond to each other as quickly as possible, sacrificing a little bit of accuracy for the sake of speed and flow.
And for our listeners who might not have a regular speaking partner readily available, you can adapt this. Talk to yourself in the mirror, or even better, use speech-to-text applications on your phone or computer. Speak a few sentences into the app and see if it transcribes your words correctly.
That's a superb piece of advice. The speech-to-text app acts as an impartial judge. If it doesn't understand your pronunciation, it's a clear sign that you need to work on that specific word or sound. It provides immediate, real-time feedback on both your clarity and your fluency.
So let's quickly recap these 4 practical exercises. 1. The 1-minute speaking challenge to build unstoppable flow. 2. Story retelling to activate vocabulary and practice narrative. 3. Speed conversation practice to boost spontaneity. And 4. Using speech-to-text apps for instant feedback on clarity and fluency.
These exercises are the training ground, the drills that build skill. But what surrounds those drills is just as important, your mindset. Because all the technique in the world can be undermined by a fearful, hesitant mentality. So let's now shift our focus to the inner game of speaking English fluently.
This is the crucial foundation. Fluency isn't just a linguistic skill, it's a state of mind. Carol, what is the first and most important mindset shift a learner can make?
The first and non-negotiable shift is to fully embrace and accept that mistakes are an essential, invaluable part of the learning process. So many people pause because they are petrified of saying something incorrect. But errors are not failures. They are data. They are the most direct feedback your brain receives on what it needs to adjust. Every single native speaker has made countless mistakes on their own language journey.
That is so true. Instead of your inner voice screaming, "Don't make a mistake," it should be whispering, "Every error is a stepping stone." The goal is progress, not perfection. This leads directly to the second mindset shift. Focus relentlessly on communication, not on perfection.
Yes, the ultimate purpose of language is to connect, to share ideas, and to understand others. If the person you are speaking with understands your message, you have already succeeded magnificently, even if your sentence had a minor grammatical error. No one will remember a small prepositional mistake if you successfully shared a fascinating idea or a funny story.
And here is one more transformative tip. Speak with confidence, even if you have to fake it initially. Your delivery changes everything. If you hesitate, speak too quietly, or look down, people will focus on your nervousness. But if you speak with energy, maintain eye contact, and smile, the listener's brain will be focused on your engaging message, not on your minor stumbles.
So, to build an unshakable mindset for fluency, 1. Welcome mistakes as your teachers. 2. Prioritize the success of communication over grammatical perfection. And 3. Project confidence through your voice and body language. It influences both your listener and your own brain.
These mental shifts are the bedrock upon which all the techniques and exercises are built. Now, let's bring it all together and create a simple, actionable plan for our listeners to start their journey to pause-free English.
And so we have arrived here, at the moment where everything comes together. We've journeyed through the reasons for the pauses, equipped ourselves with techniques, trained our brains, practiced with exercises, and fortified our mindsets. Now it is time for your personal action plan.
That's right. This is your roadmap. Let's do a final, comprehensive recap of the entire landscape we've covered. First, we identified the 4 primary enemies of fluency: a lack of confidence, vocabulary gaps, the habit of overthinking and translating, and the paralysis of nervousness under pressure. Understanding these was our crucial first step.
From there, we armed ourselves with immediate techniques to combat these issues. We learned to think directly in English, cutting out the translation middleman. We embraced the strategic use of filler words to maintain flow and avoid awkward silence. We discovered the power of shadowing to mimic native speed and rhythm. And we adopted the liberating philosophy that communication, not perfection, is the true goal.
Then we went deeper, training our very brains for faster processing. We shifted to learning vocabulary in practical phrases and chunks. We practiced active listening and prediction to stay ahead of the conversation. We engaged in anticipation exercises to sharpen our response time. And we used imitation to internalize the natural music of the English language.
After that, we moved into the gym for fluency with practical exercises. The 1-minute speaking challenge built our endurance for continuous speech. Story retelling activated our narrative skills and vocabulary. Speed conversation practice honed our spontaneity. And speech-to-text apps provided us with instant, unbiased feedback on our clarity.
And finally, we fortified our inner world with essential mindset shifts. We learned to reframe mistakes from failures into valuable teachers. We fixed our focus on the ultimate prize of successful communication, and we understood the profound impact of projecting confidence through our voice and demeanor.
So, here is your challenge, your mission, should you choose to accept it. This week, I want you to select just one single technique and one single exercise from everything we discussed today.
Do not try to do everything at once. That leads to overwhelm. The key to monumental progress is consistent, small, daily action. Perhaps you choose to practice thinking in English during your commute and do one 1-minute speaking challenge each evening. That is more than enough to start. The compound effect of this daily practice will, without a doubt, transform your fluency.
You have everything you need now. The path is clear. The power to speak English smoothly and confidently is entirely within your grasp. It begins with your decision to take that first small step today.
We believe in you completely. We would be absolutely thrilled to hear about your journey. Please visit our channel and leave a comment below telling us which one technique you have chosen for your action plan. What is your biggest fluency breakthrough going to be?
Thank you for spending your valuable time with us today. Keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember, every word you say brings you closer to the fluency you deserve. We'll see you in the next episode.